Affonso Gonçalves. You're the editor of May December, which explores a marriage that started as a tabloid scandal, loosely inspired by the case of Mary Kay Letourneau. What did you think of this script when you first read it?
I thought it was great. It was like it's such a well-written script, and I was like surprised it was Sammy's first script. It was interesting. I think what I was very kind of pleasantly surprised that there was humor in it, because it's such a difficult story, such a difficult story to write about, and she captured I think the essence of the story, and yet was able to add humor and levity to it, which I think is very important to a film like that.
And when the film has that sort of balance of tones, does that significantly affect the approach you bring to the editing?
Yes, we wanted to make sure that the humor stay in the movie, that we can actually explore and we can get. And it affects, because there, especially because the way Todd directed the film, there were so many scenes that were just one-off, lock camera, things were happening, so there's no chance of cutting. So everything around it had a slightly different pace, and you can just have to be a little really precise. There's no, like, we didn't linger that much, because the lingering happened and those shots that there are no cuts. So yeah, it made us rethink the way we cut films in general, and try to lean in on any time like the dark humor comes out, we kind of explore that. I think it's probably like the trickiest part of this film is the tone of it. It's the tone that keeps shifting, and you have to be so careful not to go overboard with any of it.
And when you're reading a script in general, do you get ideas from just what's on the page for how you want to approach it, or do you start that with the discussions with the director?
It's you usually start with the discussion with the director. Also, basically, I know what I'm going to do only when I get the footage in front of me. It's hard to kind of like predict, or like, oh, I'm going to do this way, and then you start getting the footage, and it's like, oh, wait, this I can't do. So I don't really have any pre-planned ideas, apart from the fact that me and Todd have long discussions. He has references, he has things that he want to try, the music and stuff like that. But for the most part, usually is when I get the footage is when I know what is supposed to be done. And obviously, I talk to the director, and then once they finish shooting, he joins me, and we kind of like go through it together.
And if I'm not mistaken, you were editing this as it was being shot. Is that a challenge to do, or is that how you prefer to work?
Uh, this is how I prefer to work. It's good to be involved as the film is being shot, because I can immediately, if there's any things that I think we miss, or anything like extra that I think it should be getting, or even if it's just as simple as just some technical problems that happen, I can immediately pick up the phone, talk to the director, talk to production. So I think is better. I think is very valuable to be cutting while they were shooting. They were in Savannah. I was here in LA. But and then I joined Todd in Portland, and then we cut for the most part there.
And you've worked with Todd Haynes multiple times throughout your career. What is that working relationship like? And do you have you developed a kind of shorthand, and for that really helps you work together?
Yes, it's been amazing. We've been working together for, I think, now about 12 years, 12 plus years. And we do have we have sort of understanding. We have a very similar taste in films, and the way we tell stories. So it's easy. And I love having Todd in the cutting room. It's very, he comes here when I come here. So he's here at 9. We leave at 7. We really talk about it. We love to watch the footage over and over again, really to explore performance, shots, the shape of scenes. So it's been I feel like incredibly lucky to have had this experience with Todd, and I hope to keep going. But it's fun. It's a lot of work, but it's really fun.
Do you find that he approaches films in a similar way to other filmmakers you've worked with, or is it quite a different approach?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think they all have their own ideas and ways to go about the cutting the film, thinking of the film, how they tell the story. So yeah, so I would say like every director that I've worked with have a specific way of working, you know, thinking films, and then Todd is the same.
And of course, you're working with these really impressive performances by Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, Charles Melton. How do you approach, you know, editing those performances and you know, maintaining you know, what they're bringing to the screen?
Well, it's first of all, it's really amazing. It's just like it's an incredible gift to like to an editor to get this caliber of performance. I think the way to approach is to be really, really careful with it. And once you pick one, like the performance you like the best from Natalie, make sure they matches with the performance from Julianne, and then make sure that Charles' performance matches everybody. Because you can't be like, this is too big, this is not enough, this is strange. So you always have to be sure that they all fit each other. There's so many takes, so many angles and stuff like that. So you're really careful, and we watch it. And again, like I said, I think performance is probably mine and Todd's uh favorite, and most like that we focus the most. And we just want to like be sure that whatever we pick, it fits and it works the best possible in the movie. And in this case, like having somebody like Julianne and Natalie and Charles, they give such beautiful nuance and really specific performance. So we just need to make sure we uh sort of like respecting the work they did, you know.
And Natalie Portman has one particularly a standout scene where she's reading a letter written by Gracie way back when, you know, which is just one shot directly on Natalie Portman. How many takes was that? Like, you know, because that's a complex monologue.
Yeah. I have to say I don't remember exactly. I'm gonna say there were, I think, 13 takes or 12 takes, and I think we ended up using take number 9. Um, but she had like probably all of them had like amazing performance. There was something about this take. There was an extra. There's something extra that's happening, not only in her delivery but the world around it. And so we kind of, I watched it and picked that one, and then Todd, like when he gave me his notes, there was also the one he liked. So yeah, but there are definitely also like amazing other ones that are amazing, but this was definitely the best.
As a filmmaker, does Todd Haynes generally like to do a lot of takes, get a lot of, you know, coverage, and really give you a lot of options?
I mean, no, he knows, he pretty much gets at what he wants right away. He doesn't overcover. He really thinks about. He's super well planned. So it's not a crazy amount of footage. It's not a crazy amount of takes. But I mean, he'll have takes as long as he knows that he's getting what he wants. But the coverage is really well planned, and so when I got in the cutting room, it's clear the way it's supposed to be put together.
And you know, do the films change or evolve at all in the you know, process of editing, or you know, like you said, he generally knows what he wants, but like, do things come up and surprise you, and you know, from what's on the page?
Yeah, they do. Like they definitely every time they do. In little ways. I mean, you can lift the entire scenes or change a little bit of the lines or performance. And so I believe like when we're in the cutting room, the film just lifts up and becomes something uh full of nuance, which Todd loves, and he's very specific about it. So it always changes, and we learn from it, and we kind of make sure we get the best possible version. You know, like there's a script, and then there's a film cut, and then like that's even hopefully even more there's a richness to it that we always find.
And music is such an impactful part of the film. You know, using Michel Legrand's score from The Go Between, and you
Yeah.
know, Marcelo Zabros's score on top of that. Like, how does that affect your editing, just working with that music and the tone of that music?
It affected a lot. This is something different from what we had done in the past, because usually when we work together, I try to lay down like a temporary track that's kind of used. Then we handed that to the composer, and that's kind of like the rough idea of how emotional we want to be. This one already came. Todd was, as he was planning the film, as he was researching the film, he came across that soundtrack. It's a film. I mean, he always loved the Go Between. He knew that the soundtrack, but somehow that piqued his attention even more. And to the point that he wrote in the script, he played when he was directing the film, he played to the actors on set. So I knew exactly that what he wanted to do, and he again, he had ideas about where to use what parts of the soundtrack. So it's something that already comes with its own language, its own emotion, its own ideas, and to apply that to a film that is not quite the same, that was tricky, and that was really, it was a great challenge to do. So to really, the more I listened, the more I understood what the music was about, and I could apply and change and stuff like that. And then we brought Marcelo to adapt and bring his own ideas, his own taste, his own kind of like uh, uh, touch to the music and to the film, and it was great. It was a really interesting way of doing it, which I've never done before. Todd has never done before, and I think we learned, and we got a lot from it. Yeah.
Is there any scenes or sequences in particular that you're especially proud of, or that took a lot to kind of achieve the finished product?
Yeah, there's a scene early on in the film, the first time uh Elizabeth comes to dinner at Grace's house, and you can see uh the sort of the interaction between Gracie and Joe and Elizabeth, and the son is there, and then he leaves, but there's a tension, there's a kind of understanding and looking at each other. So it was a scene that we kept coming back to get just the precise amount of information. We took a lot of dialogue out of there. We changed some of the dialogues. We played a lot off of Charles just reacting to what was going on, because it's so much, that scene is so much about subtext and reactions and looks and the timings of what people are saying, when the people are saying. So it was a scene that was one that we worked on it, and we came back and we tried and we did different things, and I feel I love the way it came out, because we worked very hard on it. Yes.
Now, editing is can be such an invisible art form. When it's working, you don't always notice it consciously. Is that something that you feel like you've succeeded, if it's not something that like is that noticeable to the viewer, but kind of works on more of a subconscious level?
I hope so. I hope so. I think by people's reaction, I feel like I have, but it's hard to say. It's editing. It's still, people know what it is and react to it, but the actual work, what we do, I think is still kind of like a mystery to a lot of people. I rather people don't notice the editing, but appreciate the work. Then I know, like, I did a good job.
And when you're watching a film, what stands out to you about the editing? Like, are you able to take off the editing cap when you're watching a film, or do you kind of notice certain things that you appreciate?
I can, and actually, I do. I think when I like a film, then I go back and be like, "Okay, why am I liking this?" I can go in and says, "Okay, I'm going to watch the editing of this film," or when something, obviously the editing is such a strong, like a very strong way of telling the story. Like for instance, you watch The Big Short, the editing is pretty clearly another tool. It's very, very strong. And I love the film. Again, I've watched the film many times to learn that, the way they did it. So basically, when I'm watching the film and enjoying it, and that's like, I really like this, I want to go back and then start paying attention. But I can't completely. I can say to you, oh, I'm gonna watch this film for the editing. 5 minutes, 10 minutes in, I forgot. I'm just watching a movie. So I can do both. Yes.
I want to congratulate you on your work on this film,
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you so much for talking with me about it. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure's mine.